I think so.
Seems like we have a nice amount here. So here we are in the last class. What I've decided to do is learn one of my favorite pieces of midrash that appear in brachot, and then I put down everything at the end, a kind of review of everything we learned, which I think will be nice for us to look at just to get a sense of what we did, in these sessions. Hold on, let me just open the Tzurat Hadaf. So we are in Perek Chamishi, which is appropriate. That's where we left off last week. We're talking about tefillah, or prayer. And I'm bringing this a little bit to counter possibly the bitterness or the alienation we might have felt 2 weeks ago when we did some of the sources on women and mitzvah obligation. Because what we have here is a fantastic collection of midrash around the prayer of Hannah, and they give her a very strong voice. Now, it's true the voice they give her is somewhat masculine, but that's an enormous compliment to give a woman a voice of a sage, right? And so I'm not sure there's anything else quite like this in the Talmud in terms of this amount of positive midrash about a female biblical character, like all collected into one narrative. And so I think we're going to have a nice time learning it together. Okay. I realize I'm one daf. Where am I? Here it is. Okay. We're skipping right. V'chana hi medaberet aliba. Hold on. No, that's not it. I have to find it. I'm sorry. On the daf, I don't have the Gemara in front of me, so I'm just working off the Gemara. Here it is. I recognize the top of the daf. Where is all the halachot we learned from her? B'tidor neder. No, that is part of it. Baplial, Yain v'shechar. Okay, that's why it's at the bottom of the previous. It's really 31A, and I thought it was only 31B. It's at the bottom of 31A. Okay. Okay, here it is. Here we are. Amar Rav Hamnuna. Okay, everyone with me? You should have it. Hopefully the English, that the daf you have has everything we need. Amar Rav Hamnuna. Kama hilchata gvarvuta ika lemishma mehane krai dechana. So we start off with Rav Hamnuna, who's an Amora, making a statement. How many halachot, great halachot, important halachot, have we learned from the text of Hannah? Now, I'll just say, we don't learn halacha from Shmuel. It's not a source, really, of halacha. And so when Rav Hamnuna says this, he's not being literal. Nach is not a source for our halachic structure. But what he's doing is turning her essentially into a sage, right? She's like a Moshe Rabbeinu. We learn from her patterns of behavior that end up becoming halacha. So, from the psukim of her prayer, we don't actually learn halacha. That's not, but we're going to learn how to daven. And so the biggest compliment you can give someone is not, oh, you inspired me, but, oh, we learned halacha from you, right? How to pray. And so it really is very impressive. Okay, so let's see what those halachot are. So what do we learn from this? Mikan lemitpalel tzarich sheyechavein libo. So we find out from here, what do we learn from Hannah? That one should direct one's heart towards one's prayer. Now it's true, that is found in Masechet Brachot earlier in the Masechet. Rak sfateha naot, only her lips move. Mikan lemitpalel sheyachtoch b'sfatav. Here we find out that a person who prays should move his lips. Now, the reason we didn't really learn daf by daf, but there's a place in Brachot where they debate whether you actually have to move your lips or prayer can be completely inward. It's a machloket. And at the end of the day, if you don't move your lips, you can still be counted for prayer if you were praying inwardly, like if you were thinking the words. The same thing if you have kavanah or don't have kavanah. If you don't have kavanah, you still get a check next to your name for praying. So on one hand, we say, oh, look at these great halachot. On the other hand, we're actually more lenient in halacha than Chana was in practice. So she is a cross between perhaps the ideal halacha and the ideal model for prayer. But when it comes down to the people and the way people pray, especially when they have to pray every day, right? Chana has the luxury of spilling her heart out to God in extreme pain and distress. Not luxury, it's not the right word, but she has the model she presents is a woman who is extremely, we saw that actually last week. We taught, well, where do we learn that you have to have Koved Rosh? If you remember, right? We learned it at the beginning of Perek Chamishi, that you're supposed to have Koved Rosh, you're supposed to have a weightiness. And where are we going to learn that from? And they bring up Hannah, and they say, oh no, we can't learn anything from her. She was infertile. She had she had pain she was bringing to God. She's not the model of every day. So notice how Rav Hamnuna is saying, oh, look how many halachot we learned from her. But that only reinforces what we don't really learn halacha from Hannah, because the prayer she presents, the focus she brings to prayer, is not a model that we think can be sustained on a daily, 3 times a day basis. On the other hand, she represents the ideal in prayer, this idea of absolute focus, moving your lips, as we're going to see, but making no sound, right? The prayer doesn't even have to be articulated with sound. Just moving your lips is bringing what's inside outside. So again, she's presenting really a model. The kola lo yishma, mikan she'asur lahagbiya kolo b'tfilato. From here we find out you're not really supposed to raise your voice in prayer. Now again, walk into any shul. There are always the really loud daveners. And we don't say to them, hey guys, you got to be quiet because of Chana and halacha and so on and so forth. So I just want to show you how interesting it is that Rav Hamnuna gives her credit for halacha, but the reality is it's not halacha, right? We don't stop people who pray loudly, even though out of consideration, they should probably play a little more quietly, consideration for the other people who are praying. And there's always a question, should a room be really silent, or should there be a low murmuring when people pray the Shemona Esrei? We're talking about the silent prayer, right? When people just move their lips, are they able to really feel what they're saying, or do you need to hear? I actually did a podcast for Pardes for next week on the Parshat Akev, and I used some of, I had read an essay by Jonathan Sachs about the spirituality of listening, and it helped me direct at least what I wanted to say, and then I had a lot of my own ideas. But there's no question, one of the things he says is that you're supposed to articulate so people can hear, so God can hear, right? Shema, right? This idea of listening requires sound and articulation. So here we're saying, oh, v'kola lo yishma, asor lagbiya kolo b'tfilato. But you're not really supposed to be silent in prayer. Chana is silent. She's so silent that Eli thinks she's drunk because her lips are moving and no sound is coming out. So again, this tension between the model she represents, this idealization, on the other hand, in reality, that's not really what we require of people. And I would also question whether complete silence is the ideal way in which one should pray. So now we find out Eli thought she was drunk. So that's really the first thing we're seeing that I think is unanimous. A person who is drunk is not supposed to daven. That is true, right? That's why on Purim, there's a real question. Often people are advised to daven mincha, to pray the afternoon prayer before they start their drinking or before they get really drunk. Because there is a problem with being drunk, not a little tipsy, a glass or two of wine, some beer, but being drunk and davening, right? It is a defilement of the prayer if you're very, very drunk. It's bad enough that most of us don't focus on a daily basis, and that we may not move our lips or we may not raise our voice, we may be too quiet or too loud and so on. But being drunk is a whole nother level of countering the effect of prayer. And so that part is pretty much unanimously agreed upon. That really, whether we learn it from Chana or not, that perhaps is the most absolute halachic statement we've seen until now. V'yomar laha Eli, ad matai tishtakri. So Eli thinks she's drunk, and then he says to her, until when are you going to be drunk? Amar Rabbi Elazar, mikan l'ro'eh b'chavero davar. So this becomes interesting. This is in the name of Rabbi Eliezer. And what he learns from this is if you see something in your friend, she'eno hagun tzarich lahochicho. Now, I already say this is a bit of a stretch to say we learned this with from Chana, but this is what Midrash is. They see an opportunity here to teach us a lesson. And what they say is, if you see something in your friend that is not right, you see your friend behaving in a manner that is inappropriate or incorrect, you must rebuke them. Again, this becomes a question, how do you do it, right? How do you rebuke someone without causing them shame? And so, but what Rabbi Eliezer learns from this is we have a responsibility as a community. This idea of, you know what, you're in, certainly in the Western world, the boundaries we put up. We see someone doing something we don't really, well, I can't say anything. I can't say anything to the way that parent is treating their child. It's their life. It's their decisions. They have agency. I can't get involved and so on. The Gemara steps out against that a little bit and says, no, there is culpability, meaning there is not really culpability, accountability. You as a friend, as a colleague, as a partner, as a family member, if you see someone doing something that isn't right, you need to give them rebuke. That then becomes a question, how do you do it in such a way that people listen? Okay, that's a different a different shiur. How do you talk so people will listen? How do you give the rebuke? If you see someone davening when they're drunk, that is an opportunity to say, hey, this really demeans the institution of prayer, the institution of praying together as a community. Maybe we need to talk about it, but again, you have to figure out how to say it. Okay. V'tan chana tzarich lahodio. Here, let's take a look at Rashi. Hanechshad tzarich lenakot et atzmo v'lahodia et choshdo she'ein bo oto davar meguneh. Wait, actually, the truth is it's tzarich lahodio. Oh, I think it's further down. Okay. I thought it was the tzarich lahochicho. It's a different word. Okay, we'll get there. V'tan chana. Notice there's not very much Rashi, right? Because hold on, let me just tell my sister I'm teaching. She's called twice already. I apologize. Mary, I'm giving a class in London. Bye. V'tan chana v'tomar. Okay, so let's continue. V'tan chana v'tomar lo adoni. She basically says to him, no, my master. No, sir. No, my lord. Amar ula v'itema Rabbi Yasi v'Rabbi Chanina. Amrale. She says to him, Lo adonata. Now I love this. This is where they give her a very sharp, very masculine voice, as you're about to see. Lo adoni, they take to mean not no sir, an act of submission, but it's going to be an act of aggression. Lo adonata b'davar zeh, v'lo ruach hakodesh shoreh alecha, sha'ata choshdeni b'davar zeh. Basically, Chana turns to Eli and says to him, you are not a master in this matter. In other words, you have no idea what's going on right now. And you don't even have Ruach HaKodesh. In other words, she doesn't submit to him. She essentially attacks him by saying, you're supposed to be the priest and the prophet, and you know nothing, which she kind of strips him bare. She exposes his frailty, like essentially the fact that God has not privileged him with the truth about what Chana is doing and why she is there. And so it's very, very harsh, right? She rebukes him essentially. We started off by saying if a person sees something inappropriate, tzarich lahochicho, so Eli was right because he thought she was drunk. But the text, the Gemara leaves Eli in the language of the text, which is telling her, until when are you going to be drunk? They create a narrative in which Chana rebukes him, right? So it subverts what the text presents, which is Eli rebuking her, and she turns around and rebukes him, and very harshly. And I would say borderline a little cruelly, right? She essentially, now we've seen enough in the world of the academy to know this is the way the sages talk to one another, right? There is a verbal violence sometimes to the repartee between sages. And so they allow her that kind of voice where she basically says to him, you're nothing. God hasn't even told you what's going on here. Like, you've suspected me of something, and it's just not true. And clearly you don't know how to tease out truth from non-truth. Like, who are you? Right? Where are your magic powers? Where are your supernatural powers? Where's your spiritual powers? Like, you think I'm drunk? You're reading this completely wrong. And so it's actually quite harsh. In a moment, I'm actually going to pull up. You know what? I think, hold on, let me get into Svaria, because since I'm sharing this screen, it'll be easy to do. Let's just take a quick look at Chana's, at the interaction, because I realize I often start off doing that and I didn't, but it'll be very easy and very quick for us to do that. Okay, so why don't we take a look? Everyone can see? So let's just remember the story. It is important for us to see certain psukim to see how the Midrash reads them.
I can't see anything different.
What?
I can't see anything different on the screen.
You can't see Svaria?
No.
Were you able to see the Gemara page when I was on it?
Gemara up, that's still up, but I haven't got Svaria.
Oh, new share. Okay. Yes, I see. I have to wait. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, interesting. I just thought it was whatever page I was on. I guess not. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly go through the story of Chana, just to remind us, especially textually, since we're going to see now what the Midrash is playing with. Well, I'll read the first part in English, and then when we get to the part that's important here, I'll read. There's a man from Ramatayim of the Tzufites in the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Yerucham, son of Eliu, son of Tuhu, son of Tzuf, and Ephraim. And so we find out we have a man from Ephraim. He dates back to, obviously, Yosef, who would be the father of Ephraim. He had two wives, one named Chana and the other Pnina. Pnina had children, Chana was childless. So the book of Shmuel opens up with a classic scene. It's the Yaakov, Rachel, and Leah triangle. One wife is barren, one wife is fruitful. And really, we could spend the whole hour just on this chapter. And the man used to go up from his town every year to worship and to offer sacrifices to the Lord. And of hosts at Shiloh, he goes Lizboach Ladonai. And there are two sons of Eli, Chofni and Pinchas, Kohanim Ladonai. And as we're going to find out, they're very, very corrupt. And on this day, V'yizvach Elkanah v'natan l'pnina ishto l'chol banav v'notam manot. He used to give portions every year. This was his, once a year he goes up to the Mishkan. He gives portions to Penina and all of her sons and daughters. So we understand she has quite a few children. Ulachana yitain mana achat apayim ki yad chana ahev v'adonai sagar rachma. Again, we have another story. It's such an old story. God closes her womb. God creates this discontent in the family. And Penina made her life miserable. He would taunt her that the Lord had closed her womb. The Midrash tries to apologize for Penina, but I don't want to do that. You have two wives. One wife is the favorite wife. They are not sisters. And there is a lot of tension in the family. And Penina, even though she has all these sons and daughters, clearly feels like the lesser wife. And she uses her fertility to taunt her co-wife. And so every year she would go up and she would weep and she wouldn't eat. Okay. So Elkanah, her husband, says to her, Chana, lama tifki, why are you crying? But lama lo tochli, but lama yera levavech, halo anochi tovlach me'asara banim. And, it's the second time we've had a man showing complete misunderstanding. And it's interesting because it's clear to me the text, both here and in Breshit, is aware of how Yaakov and Elkanah fall short of offering any sort of real compassion to their wives struggling with infertility. The only husband, in my opinion, who shows an awareness of the pain of his wife is Yitzchak, v'yater al odot Rivka ishto, right? He petitions God on behalf of his wife. He beseeches God on behalf of his wife. Here we have Yaakov and Elkanah, and Yaakov has a very angry response. What do you want? Am I God? Tachat Elokim anochi? And Elkanah basically says to her, why are you crying? Like, aren't I better to you than 10 sons? And the answer is, no, you're not. I love you very much. But my love for you doesn't assuage the tremendous emptiness and pain I feel. And pay attention to this next pasuk. It's definitely going to come up. V'takam Chana acharei achla b'shilo, v'acharei shato, ve'eli hakohen yoshev al kisei al mezuzat heichal Adonai. So basically, Chana, after he tries to comfort her, does something very interesting. She gets up, everyone's finished the meal, they're kind of satiated and sitting around, and she gets up, and Eli is sitting al mezuzat heichal Adonai, he's sitting near the doorpost. It's not clear that she sees him or he sees her, it doesn't really matter at this point. V'hi marat nafesh v'titpalel Adonai uvacho tivkeh. So she is absolutely marat nafesh, we saw that in last week's shir. It was the reason we rejected her as the model for the Mishnah of preparing oneself for prayer, because we said she's marat nefesh. Most people don't wake up every day marat nefesh. And it's the first time we're told of someone who prays, v'tit palel, ubachotivke, and she cries bitterly. She's in tremendous anguish. And I'll just point out the juxtaposition of 8 and 9. It seems like her husband's comfort has spurred her to actually get up and go to the tabernacle. Previously, we were told, this is all going to be reflected in the Midrash, that every year she would cry and not eat, but she cries kind of silently or not silently in the bosom of her family, right? Sitting there, they're all eating and she doesn't eat and she's crying. This is the first time we're told, and it seems the first time, that she actually gets up and she goes to the tabernacle. But Tidor Neder, Tomar Adonai Tzvaot, and this is an important Neder, again, the Midrash is going to play on it. So notice she's called herself Amatecha 1, 2, and now it's going to be a third time. V'natata la'amatcha zera anashim, u'tativ l'Adonai kol yemei chayav, u'mora lo ya'ala al rosho. She makes a Neder. And here's the Neder she makes. First of all, she calls God by a name he has not yet been called by, Tzvaot, right? Tzva has within it, of course, the idea of army, hosts, multitudes. Adonai obviously is familiar, but she adds the title of Tzvaot, and we'll see how the Midrash is going to immediately hone in on that and make something of that. In addition, she basically says, Im ra'o ter'eh. Again, the Midrash is going to love ra'o ter'eh, right? They're going to do a wonderful word play there. I'm just pointing it out in advance of our learning. And then she uses Amatecha 3 times. Now, for those of you who remember Shmot 21, Exodus 21, in Ama, unlike a Shifcha, is a Hebrew maidservant who's given by her father into another household for money usually. Right? Her father has the ability to sell her into a household with the understanding that she will become wife, either to the master or to the son. The maidservant has a lot of rights in the household, both before and after she's taken in marriage. Of course, after marriage, she becomes fully wife, even though she started as maidservant, but she is someone who has a position and cannot be abused. She cannot be given heavy work. She has the right to appeal to her master for injustice. And certainly in the halacha and the Mishnah and Gemara, this gets fleshed out. Now, what's interesting is we might have thought that Chana would call herself Shifcha. The Shifcha is the slave, right? The lowliest of the lowly in the household. The Amma is a maidservant. She's not the lowliest of lowly. And in fact, the master has a lot of obligation to protect her. So Simi Peters, in a wonderful book called How to Read Midrash, and this is very much reflective of Simi's analysis, points out that she deliberately goes to God and says, I'm your maidservant, God. I'm not your slave, and I'm coming to you because I have rights in this relationship. And we're going to see what her rights are, of course. I'm going to let the Midrash talk. But I'm just pointing out amatecha, amatecha, amatecha 3 times. That's like a chazaka that builds, there's a building upon itself. It creates a very strong platform where she says, I am maidservant, as opposed to I am shivcha. We'll see she's going to call herself a shivcha at the end. I'm just pointing out things that are going to come up. And then she says, give me zera anashim. The Midrash is going to want to know what that means. And I will give him to the Lord all of the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his hair. So basically she says he will become a Nazir. He will become a Nazir, and he's really after Samson. Samuel is a Nazir for life. Vaya kirbetal lehipalel. Hold on, we're almost up to the part that we got. Lifnei Adonai ve'eli shomeret pina. Eli is watching her mouth. Okay, that's very interesting. It's where he doesn't understand what's going on. He's the second man in the story to completely misunderstand Hannah. That's why she has to go to God. So now we finally are in the pasuk that grounded the midrash we already read, when Rav Hamnuna says, how many halachot gedolot, how many great halachot did we learn from Hannah? He's talking about this pasuk, this idea of going inward and focusing and speaking from the heart, the idea of the lips moving, right? There should be some action in prayer. Prayer is very inward, but you need something physical to express, a voice not being heard. So it's interesting that the Gemara says, well, you should be completely silent. You shouldn't lift your voice. In other words, some people really do need to hear the sound of their voice when they pray, but keep it low. And Eli thinks she's drunk, which allows the Gemara to come in and defend Eli. Now that's a very important piece. You can see they don't really admire Eli here. They're on Hannah's side throughout the Midrash, but they have to admire him. He's a Kohen. He's supposed to also have some sort of nevuah. And he gets it so wrong. And so the best they can do is say, he thinks she's drunk. And so he feels he has to rebuke her. So that's the rebuke he gives her. It's not, he doesn't ask her, are you okay? Is everything okay? Why are you crying? What caused this distress, right? He immediately jumps into the rebuke. This would not be the way I would suggest anyone reprimand or rebuke anyone. It's always a good idea to check out your facts first, right? Something Eli does not do. And as a result, notice that her rebuke of him, in my opinion, is even harsher, right? What does the Gemara say? She basically turns to him and says, listen, V'tan Nechama v'tomar lo adoni. They basically let her say, no, you think you're an Adon? You think you're the master here in this tabernacle? You're not my master. God didn't even reveal to you what I'm doing here. So who are you? Like, what kind of power do you have? Right? So again, very, very harsh. I don't think that's what Hannah was saying, of course. I think she's actually very supplicant, right? She says, Lo Adoni, Ishak shat ruach anochi. I am a very unhappy woman. V'yein v'shechar lo shatiti v'eshpoch et nafshi lifnei Adonai. She basically, throws out her credentials. She says, I haven't drunk anything. Like, again, you totally got it wrong. Imagine her frustration. Another man, this is supposed to be the man of God, totally gets it wrong. And she says, I've poured out my soul to God. I don't like heart here. I think really it's soul, right? We talked about the fact that she's praying from her heart, but I think here, v'eshpochet nafshi, her entire being, her soul, not just her heart, is being poured out before God. Okay. Al titen et amatcha, again, she calls herself maidservant. This is already the 4th time. Lifnei bat lial, don't think of me as a worthless woman. Kimerov sichi v'chaasi divarti ad hena. And basically, again, she says out of distress, and kaasi, I see, is translated as anguish, or you could say distress and anguish. I think there's anger there also. I think there's anger. I think that, again, the translator has chosen to keep it anguish and distress, but I would suggest that Hannah admits, I'm angry. I'm angry, and the Midrash is going to reflect her anger. They're going to legitimize her anger at God, and it's going to be a wonderful platform to see what they're thinking when bad things happen to good people. Who do we go to? Do we go to God with like, thank you, God, or I'm confused, God, or give me some sign, God? Or is there real anger? Is anger legitimate in a moment where I feel I've been betrayed by God, or alienated from God. And so I would leave it ka'asi. I think it's much stronger than anguish. I think there's anger there. Dibarti adhena. B'yan Eli, and Eli answers, V'yomer l'chila shalom v'elohei Yisrael yitin et shelatech. Go in peace. God of Israel will give your answer. Shelatech asher sha'alt me'imo. I'll already point out also, what name would you guess she's going to name the child based on this pasuk? Remember, he says, I'm going to give you your wish that you asked for. Anyone? Any guess what you would call the child?
Shaltiel?
Well, Shaul, right? She's going to come back and she's going to say, this is the child She'alti. It's interesting that she names her child Shmuel. The references here, I'll show you a few more, are to Shaul. And so there's really a foreshadowing that Shaul and Shmuel are going to be intertwined. That, to some degree, she births Shaul when she births Shmuel. Because she talks a lot about, you'll see it in a moment, I'll point it out. But Tomer Timsat, now notice, what does she call herself now? And if you're only in the translation, you can't pick up on it. Shivchatech, Shivchatcha, your slave, right? A Shivcha is more of a slave than a servant, a Canaanite slave who has no rights, essentially who's completely submissive. And now that she's getting what she came for, now that she's fought for what she believes she deserves, she becomes even more submissive. Certainly in response to the hierarchy of her and God, her and the prophet, her and the Kohen. I'm only a shivcha, right? I'm nothing, right? I'm afar, I'm dirt, right? That's okay. Now that she's fought and won, she can move further, certainly in recognition of God's greatness or the greatness of the person in front. She calls herself shivchatcha, and as I said, I don't believe that's a casual. I think she goes from being amatcha to shivchatcha only at the end when she's granted her request. She eats. Now she's ready to eat. She's not sad anymore. And God remembers her. And then we find out she has a son, and she calls him Shmuel. Adonai She'altiv. Again, it's interesting. His name should be Shaul. She asked from the Lord. Shmuel does not have in it the root Shin Aleph Lamed together, right? You could say the Shin joins with the L at the end, but Shem El, right? It's the name of God, but it's not Shaul, which is asked of from God. And so that's interesting. And of course, what happens at the end is she stays and she nurses the child for presumably 2 or 3 years, right? That's the amount of time that you would nurse in the ancient world until she weans him. And at the time of weaning, she takes him up to the tabernacle. And I love this because you imagine Eli is like, what? Like, you're leaving me with a 3-year-old child in the tabernacle? But she brings him, look in verse 26, but Tomer bi Adoni, she goes back and speaks very respectfully. I was the woman who stood before you and prayed to the Lord. Notice again, 2 more usages of the root sha'al. V'im anochi hishaltihu, another one. Ladonai kol hayamim asher hayahu Shaul ladonai. And here's Shaul, exactly Shaul. V'yishtachavu sham ladonai. So basically I'm just pointing out again, there seems to be a tremendous foreshadowing of the future relationship between Shaul and Shmuel. Why the author chose to heighten that here, I don't know. But unless to say that, again, Shmuel turns Shaul into the man he becomes, right? So that is a form of birth. Okay, and so really that's the end of the chapter. I just wanted to go through it so we could see a little bit what the Midrash is playing with. Questions? Anything that wasn't clear? Okay, let's go back to the daf. I'm going to close that. Do you now see the daf?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Vatan Chana v'Tomar lo Adoni. Amar Ulavi, Tema Rav Yosef Rabbi Chanina. Okay, we did this on Ruach HaKodesh. Ika da'amri. So the Ika da'amri is Yesh Omrim. There's a different version. Hachi Amrale, that this is what she actually said to Eli. Now again, this is fictitious, right? This is a narrative that's filling in the gap. Was there a greater conversation going on between Chana and Eli than that which the text taught us? And one version says she turns to him and says, who do you think you are? You're not Adon here. You're not the master here. You don't have Ruach HaKodesh. You suspected me of this, which is ridiculous. Lo Adonata lav ika shchina v'ruach HaKodesh gabecha. Shedantani lekaf chova v'lo dantani lekaf zkut. Mi lo yadata di isha kashad ruach anochi v'yayin v'shechar lo shatiti. So the ika da'amri goes even further. The second version is an even longer Musar Shmuz, right? It's an even longer rebuke of Eli, because what does she say, Dan? She says, you're not a master over this. You don't have the Shechina or Ruach HaKodesh resting on you. And of course, in the chapter 3 of Shmuel, there's a very poignant scene. I suggest you go and read it. It's very short and very beautiful. The voice of God has not rested on Eli in many years, or has not been heard among the children of Israel for many a long year. And Shmuel is lying down next to the Aron, and he hears Shmuel. And he runs to Eli and he says, Eli, my master, did you call me? And Eli says, it's the middle of the night, they're sleeping. And Eli says, no, I didn't call you, go back to sleep. And he comes a second time. And Eli says, no, I didn't call you, go back to sleep. And he comes a third time. And at this point, Eli understands it's the voice of God and prepares Shmuel to receive the voice of God. So the author of this midrash, of course, knows that Eli has lost the voice. The voice of God no longer appears to Eli. And her son is going to be the next one to receive the Ruach HaKodesh and the Shechina, the voice of God. And that must have been a very painful and poignant moment for Eli. His sons, Chofni and Pinchas, are corrupt. They will not continue his tradition, his belief, his way. It will be this surrogate son of his, who he ends up bequeathing to Hannah, and she then gives back to him, who essentially will carry on his tradition, will carry on his belief system. And so I believe that the Ika De'amre is alluding to the fact that it is Shmuel who will get the Shechina and Ruach HaKodesh, possibly because of this moment, right? Shedantani lekaf chova v'lo dantani lekaf zkut. You suspected the worst of me, and you didn't give me the benefit of the doubt. You didn't even ask me what's going on. Are you okay? What are you doing, right? And so, as I said, didn't you know that I was a woman who was bitter of spirit, that I had not drunk wine and beer and liquor and so on? Okay, and so that's the end of that drasha. Amar Rabbi Elazar, mikan lenachshad b'davar she'en bo sarich lahodia. This is what Rashi was commenting on. Rabbi Elazar goes as far as to defend Hannah for this harsh rebuke by saying, if you're suspected of something that you didn't do, you have to tell the person who suspected you that you actually didn't do it. You get to defend yourself. It's a right. You must. Sarich lahodia, and that's what Rashi was saying. Hanechshad sarich lenakod etzmo. Someone who's suspected wrongly has to cleanse himself of that suspicion. V'lahodia et choshto, and he has to inform the person who accused him she'en bo davar meguneh, that he's not filled with this despicable quality or behavior. So again, that's the end of what I'll call the first unit of Midrash, where the Gemara went through, thanks to Rav Hamnuna, almost word by word, that first pasuk, where Eli comes to a certain, we see how Hannah davens, Eli comes to a certain he concludes something wrongly, and Hannah from Lo Adoni is given permission to rebuke back, and as we said, in many ways, even more harshly than Eli rebuked her, right? It's a stripping of all pretense. She strips Eli of any ability to hide behind his priesthood and his former ability to hear the voice of God. Okay. Now we're up to the next. Okay. Et amitecha, al titen et amitecha. Lifnei bat li'ah. Okay, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Mikan l'shikur shemitpalel, ki'ilu oved avodah zarah. So now Rabbi Elazar continues. Someone who davens when they're drunk, it's as if they worship idols. Why? Because one of the ways she defends herself is to say that she's not a bat blial, and blial is a euphemism for idol worship. So again, it's a word play on a pasuk that people who are B'nai Belial or Bat Belial are idolaters. Ma'ala halana avodah zara, afkana avodah zara. Again, that the Midrash often does that, either in halachic discourse or Aggadic discourse. If you find another verse where the meaning of a word is clear, you can then use it to clarify the same meaning of the same word in a place where the meaning is more obscure. It's called a gezerah sham. V'yanei Levi Omar l'chila shalom Amar Rabbi Elazar mikam l'choshev et chavero b'davar she'ein bo shetzarich l'faiso. So Rabbi Elazar continues to learn halacha from this story. When he tells her go in peace, Rabbi Elazar says he's fulfilling the obligation that if you suspect someone of something that is incorrect, you must l'faiso, not reward him. What word am I looking for? You must
conciliate
or placate, I was getting to. V'lo od ela shetzarich levarcho, he has to give him a blessing. And so shene'amar v'Elohei Yisrael yitena shelatech. And that's why he was forced to give her the blessing. He doesn't even know what it is she wants, by the way. When he says to her, God will grant you whatever you requested, he has not even asked her, and what is it you want, right? So again, very interesting. And that's really the end of the first unit. Sorry, I stopped too soon. Okay, questions, comments, because I'm ready to move on to the next group of midrash. V'tidor neder v'tomer Adonai tzvaot. So again, I already told you that tzvaot is the first time God is being called tzvaot. Amar Rabbi Elazar, miyom shebara HaKadosh Baruch Hu et olamo, lo haya adam shekaro HaKadosh Baruch Hu tzvaot. From the day God created the world, no one called God with the name tzvaot, ad Shabbat Chana v'karoto tzvaot, until Chana came and called God by the name tzvaot, which again is very it's very powerful. They're giving her a lot of power, right? They're turning her into essentially a very powerful persona. We learn a lot of halachot from her. Usually we learn halachot from men, right? We allow her to give Eli Musa. We give her credit for using a new name for God. Amra Chana lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel Olam, mikol tzivei tzvaot shebarata ba'olamcha, kashe be'einecha shetiten li ben. She turns to God. This is the words they put in her mouth. You created all the hosts of the universe. You created the entire universe. Tzva'et tzvaot, hosts upon hosts, multitudes, infinite multitudes. Is it really so hard to give me one son? Again, by using the language of tzvaot, the Midrash plays on this idea that tzvaot are multitudes. And why would Chana use that name as opposed to Elokim or El Shaddai and so on? Because Chana is using it to rebuke God. That's what's astonishing. They're allowing her to rebuke God. God, you can create an entire universe. You can't give me one son. You're the creator. One son. You created an entire, multitudes. Okay. And so now we have a mashal. Mashal l'maha davar domeh. L'melech basar v'adam she'asa su'uda la'avadav. So try to pay attention. The mashal and the nimshal, and again, I credit Simi Peters with the research into this. Whenever you have a parable and a message, what's called the mashal is the parable, the nimshal is the message to the parable. So the parable is often about a king, it's about a parent and a child, meaning often there are human figures, human relationships in the parable. And then in the nimshal, in the message, it refers back to God and Bnei Israel. Okay, so that's usually the model. What Simi pointed out after doing a lot of research is that there's always a gap. In other words, if you expect the parable to line up exactly to the message in the parable, it won't work. And you can try it. I don't have a board here. I didn't think to put together a whiteboard for this. But I'll already tell you what the gap is. Okay, so let's see. You have a king, and he makes a feast for his servants. Ba ani achad va'amar al petach, amar lahem tenu li prusa achad, v'lo hishkiach alav, dachak v'nichnas etz al hamelach. So you have a feast for the servants of God, a poor man standing at the doorpost, which again, the doorpost is a wonderful liminal space outside and inside, right? The doorpost is neither outside nor inside. So he's standing at the doorpost looking in. He's not fully in, but he's not fully out. And he says, give me one piece of bread. And they, lo hishkichu alav, it doesn't even get to the king. he asked the servants who are having the feast, give me a piece of bread, and they didn't listen. So he pushes past and he goes all the way to the king. Amar le, Adoni hamelech, mikol su'uda she'asita, kasher be'enecha li'ten li prusa achat. So basically, from this entire feast, God, can't you give me one piece of bread? Now, it's obvious, right? We have the parable, we have the nimshal. The feast is all of the children being born. She doesn't have a child. She's the ani. She has to push past and get to the king. But if I set up the mashal and nimshal, the question is, from our story, who are the avadim and who does she have to push past, right? Where is that in the story? We can understand she wants one piece of bread, no one listens to her. So again, who is the no one who listens to her? Well, presumably Elkanah and Penina, right? This idea, Eli, by the way, joins that as well. Right? He doesn't really listen to her either. So she has to go to God. Right? It's her only answer. But what I think is very beautiful here is the pushing past, and again, this is not my idea, I'm going to give credit to Simi Peters. She has to push past herself. In other words, she has to push past the taunts of Penina, if I go back into the story, right? The fact that Penina is constantly telling her, you're no good, you're barren, you can't have a child. And she has to push past the comfort of her husband. In other words, what's blocking her are the people who are nearest, possibly dearest, if Elkanah is dear to her, right? She has to push past them, and essentially both of them have given up on her, right? So sometimes it's the people around us. Some have good intentions, some don't. But they're the ones who block us from getting where we really want to get. And she's standing in the doorway, right? Every year she sits and cries and cries and cries, and Penina taunts her, and Elkanah gives her extra food, right? But she has to push past both those voices. And there's a lot of courage there, right? This idea of finally finding her voice, using a name for God no one has ever used, finding the language to say to God, you can do this, God. This is nothing for you. But it's obviously taken years, right? And so, the sense we get in the story is it happens pretty quickly. He goes to a feast, he sees, he pushes past. If we go back to our story, we recognize she's been standing in the doorway in this liminal space for a long time. And the courage is pushing past the servants and making her way to God, where she believes she'll be heard, right? And so I think that's a very beautiful reading. Okay, let's move on. The next, so just notice the collection, the voices they're allowing Hannah to have, such strong voices. This, I would argue, is a more of a feminine voice, right? Finding her own word for God, her own way of calling God Svaot and bringing up her infertility. Imra Otera. Now, I asked you to pay attention, Imra Otera. If you see, now, there are two ways of reading it, right? Imra Otera is if you will see, right? Please, God, have compassion on me, see my plight. But what the Midrash notices, and again, from a very male place, if you see God, just wait and see. In other words, if you see and you don't answer me, God, just wait and see what I'm going to do. Okay, and let's see what she threatens God. In this next passage, she's going to threaten God. And that's going to freak Rabbi Akiva out, as we're going to see. Imra Otera. I'm Rabbi Elazar. Notice how Rabbi Elazar is our narrator, right? He's the one who is behind all these midrashim. He's essentially collected this compilation. He's created this compilation. Amra Chana lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel Olam, Imra mutav, if you see God, my plight, and you answer, it'll be good for you, God. V'im lav, tireh elech ve'estater b'fnei Elkanah ba'ali, v'kevan demistatarna mashkuli me sota. She basically says to God, and I love this, it's so brilliant. If you don't give me a child, I've read your Torah, God. I know what it says in there. I'm going to go and pretend to be a sota. In other words, I'm going to go pretend to have an affair. Ve'estater. I'm going to go seclude myself with another man in front of my husband. And because I've done that, he's going to have no choice but to bring me up to the Temple Mount and force me to drink the water that a woman accused of adultery drinks, with God's name erased in it. Right? God's name erased, and some water from the basin and some dirt from the floor. And then God, you're going to have to give me a child. Because at the end of that chapter, it's chapter 5 of Numbers, we're told that if the woman is innocent, v'nizra'a zera, she becomes planted with seed. And so she basically says, either you give me a child, or I'm going to force your hand, God. I'm going to threaten you. I know your Torah. You promise a child to a woman who's falsely accused. So I'll go set up the circumstances, force my husband to accuse me, and then I'm going to go and to drink the water, and you're going to have to give me a child. And if you don't, v'iyatao said Toratcha plaster, and if you don't, your Torah will become a mockery. Now, what I find fascinating here, again, this is very much the thinking of a rabbinic sage, and they are very aware in the Tractate of Sota of the problem with the Torah promising fertility to a woman who is vindicated, let alone promising punishment to a woman who is definitely guilty. In other words, Sota, the Parsha of the Sota, causes tremendous angst for the authors of the Mishnah because it's supernatural, and we don't really do supernatural. You're essentially promising a response to a non-toxic test on the spot. Either something happens, her belly distends and her thigh drops, or she becomes pregnant. But what if neither of those things happen, right? Then the Torah becomes a mockery. And so notice she's expressing what, it doesn't even get expressed in Sota, but essentially this is their deep anxiety about Sota, and they allow her to express it with the double language Imra o ter'eh, which can be, read as a threat. If you see God, good. And if not, just you wait and see. Shenamar v'niktav v'nizra'a zera. Okay. Hanicha, I'm actually going to, this next part is kind of in parentheses. Hanicha lamanda amar im hayta akara nifgada shapir. Okay, so this works well according to the drasha on v'nizra'a zera in Sota. We've digressed a little bit, I apologize. It's the way the Gemara is. And it says, look, that's very nice. That's a really good drasha. You just gave a really interesting suggestion to Hana. Good for you. But that only works for what we'll see is Rabbi Yishmael, who says that if she's barren, she becomes fertile. Elalamanda amar im hayta yoledet. What if she has children? Meaning this idea that a barren woman becomes fertile if she's falsely accused. Well, that's a nice idea, but what if she's a fertile woman who's accused? So then we say, well, if she gave birth batsar yoledet b'rivuach nikevot yoledet zcharim. If she gave birth painfully, she now will have easy births. If she had females, she'll now have males. If she had shchorim, black children, she'll have yoledet levanim. I don't know, that's supposed to happen, okay? Ktsarim yoledet arukim. If she has short children, she'll have long children. In other words, there'll be an upgrade, right? There'll be an upgrade. It's not politically correct, but it is 2,000 years ago. Well, okay, so that works well. If she's, if the drasha is she was barren, so she becomes fertile. But there's another drasha that suggests it has nothing to do with barren women becoming fertile. It has to do with upgrading the kind of child you have, or the birth experience. Okay, let's see where this is going. Titania, now it brings a braita. Again, here's our braita. V'niktav v'nizra'a zera melamed she'im hayta akara nifkedet Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael is the one who says if she was barren, she becomes fertile. Now, I'll just point out that drasha is an opening for women to pretend to commit adultery if they're infertile, right? A tremendous opening. So let's see what happens. Amar le Rabbi Akiva, im ken yalchu kol ha'akarot kulan v'yistatru. Rabbi Yishmael, if what you're saying is true, all of the barren women are going to go fake adulterous relationships so they can be accused, drink the water, and then God will have to reward them with fertility. But v'zo shelo kilkala nifkedet. So, and basically he says only a woman who is not, the danger is, of course, some of these women are going to end up committing adultery, right? You're faking an affair, a certain percentage are actually going to have the affair, and then you've created a mess. You can't offer a clear solution to infertility with this method. So Rabbi Akiva says, Elam elamed shimayta yoledet b'tzar yoledet b'rivuach, tzarim yoledet arokim, shchorim yoledet b'banim, achad yoledet shtayim, she has one baby, she'll have twins. And so the machloket between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva is a very important one. Rabbi Yishmael is willing to say that this is a cure for infertility, right? The Torah promises niktav v'nizra zara. He even means for a woman who has been barren, right? She'll become fertile. Rabbi Akiva is like, oh my God, you're going to have all these women running to pretend to be adulterous. That's a terrible idea. Some of them are going to commit adultery. No, let's just make it that it means their next birth experience will be a better experience. But it's not a cure for infertility. Mayim ra'ot terah. So how does Rabbi Akiva understand? If you see, you will surely see. What threat is Chana threatening God with? Dibra Torah kilashon b'nei adam. So Rabbi Akiva says, don't be silly. It's just the way people speak in double language. Now, the irony here is Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael argue all the time about double language. In other words, Rabbi Yishmael is the one who says, Imra o ter'eh, that's just the way Dibra Torah kilashon adam. That's the way the Torah speaks, right? The double language. And Rabbi Akiva is the one who says, no, every double, repeated verbs, vavs, yuds, and so on, those are grounds for new drashot. So it's interesting that in the end, it's Rabbi Yishmael's drasha that is going to be used here, when he's usually the one who says, Kineged b'nei adam, what is the language? Kilashon b'nei adam dibra Torah. So again, if you know that a little bit about Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael, you understand that they've just subverted what is usually Rabbi Yishmael's drasha into Rabbi Akiva's words. But again, that's a little side point. Okay. So I already said 3 times in one pasuk the word amatcha, amatecha, is used. Amarayasi b'Rabbi Chanina. So this is beautiful, another beautiful drasha. Gimel amatot halalu lama amra chana l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why does she say amatcha 3 times? I pointed it out so that we could get to this drasha. What does she say? Ribbono shel olam. Shlosha bidkei mita barata b'isha. Now again, this is so subversive. She's saying, God, there are 3 tests in which a woman will die if she doesn't pass the test. It's a very problematic Mishnah. Women die for not being careful with 3 mitzvot: lighting candles, taking challah, and going to the mikvah. Right? That's a Mishnah in Masechet Shabbat, chapter 2. Very difficult Mishnah. But she uses it. Again, that's what's brilliant. She's using the Sota, which as a feminist is a difficult chapter. She's using the Mishnah, which I find, again, as a feminist, very difficult. And it's almost like they anticipate, they allow her, a woman, to use these problematic passages for women against God, to threaten God. And I don't know if they're, are they aware of how subversive it is to the male culture? Like, it's just, they can't not be aware. So basically, what she says to God is, you gave women 3 tests. Bidkei mita. Va'amr li shlosha divkei mita. And some say, let's not call them bidkei, let's call them divkei mita. Ve'elu hen nida chala v'hadlakat haner. Klum avarti al achad mehan. Now, again, she's being, she says, first of all, you're not even testing me. Have I failed at any of them? Now, you wouldn't, those are, the lighting of candles is certainly rabbinic. So she wouldn't actually have been keeping these necessarily. Mikvah, most likely, if she's keeping Torah, but irrelevant. The irony here is she basically says to God, you're not even testing me. I'm supposed to at least be in childbirth so you can test my authenticity in these mitzvot. You're not, like, where's my test? I'm willing to take a chance, God. I'm not going to die in childbirth because I do these mitzvot. And if I haven't been doing them properly, then let me die in childbirth. Again, it's a wonderful subversive voice where she's taking something that seems to be so negative towards women, and she kind of flips it. So she uses it to then say to God, how can you not let me at least try to die in childbirth, God? Right? You promised me this test. I want to pass the test. Get me pregnant and let me go into childbirth and let's see what happens. So again, it's the second passage that she does that, the Soten here. So when she says, give me zera anashim, the question is, what does she mean by zera anashim? Amar Rav, gavra beguvre. So Rav says, the mightiest of mighty. Vishmuel amar zera shemoshech shnei anashim. Shmuel says, a zera, a kind of son that will anoint 2 men, which is of course what he does, Shaul and David. Uman inu Shaul and David. Who are they going to be? Shaul and David. Rabbi Yochanan amar zera sheshakul kishnei anashim uman inu Moshe va'Aaron. Who are those? You're going to have a child. the initial suggestion, now this again is a very male voice, give me the best, give me the top. I want a son, and I want him to be equal to Moshe and Aaron. I want him to anoint Shaul and David. So you feel a bit of the male ego, the competition. Give me the best. But then notice where it goes. V'rabanan amrei zera anashim, zera shemuvla ben anashim. Basically, just give me a child, an average child who's swallowed up. In other words, who's mediocre, who's just a child of God. So the initial voice, Rav and Shmuel, and the third one is who's the Rabbi Yochanan. They're like the best, the top of the top. And then it switches to a very sweet voice, maybe a little more feminine, in that I just want a child. Like, he doesn't have to be the best. It's okay. Just give me a child. He could be muvla ben ha'anashim. He could be swallowed up by other people who are the best. I don't care. Kiata Rav Dimi Amar lo aroch v'lo gu. It's not tall and not short. V'lo katan v'lo ilem, and not too small and not lame. V'lo tzachor v'lo gichor. V'lo chacham v'lo tipesh. God, just give me a healthy child. That's all I'm asking you for. He doesn't have to be more than that. I don't remember what tzachor is. But he basically says, like, that's all I want. Just give me a child. It can be it shouldn't be too small nor too fat, not too white, not too red. Nothing that stands out, God. I just want an average Jewish child, right? That's all I want. Just give me someone, right? And so I think that is reflective more of what she was probably asking for. אני האישה היא ניצבת עמכם בזה, אמר ריבונו של עולם מכאן שאסור לשבת בתואר. Second, now I want to get to the part where she asks for God to use her dress. But there's one more drasha that I find very powerful. Hold on. Yeah, here it is. V'chana hi medaberet al liba, amar Rabbi Eliezer. This is the last drasha. Mishum Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra al iskei liba. So she talks about matters literally of her heart. Amra lefanav ribono shel olam kol ma shebarata b'isha lo barata davar echad levad. Yes, Lindsay.
Where are we exactly? I've got lost.
Oh, I'm down here, the two dots, but let me see where it is in the English. Hold on.
You can see. Well, we don't have the English. We have the daf.
Oh, you have the dot. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to go back into it. Hold on. It's the two dots down. Do you see where my pointer is or no?
No.
When I do this, do you see this?
Great,
yeah.
fantastic. Thanks.
V'chana hi medaberet al liba. Okay. Al iskei liba amra lefanav ribono shel olam kol ma shebarata b'isha lo barata davar echad levad. This is really the last voice they give her. And she basically, again, very feminine, when she says to God, God, you didn't invent anything in the woman, create anything in the, we're back to God as creator, that was meant to be wasted. Einayim l'rod, eyes to see, asnayim l'shmoa, ears to hear, chotem l'hariach, a nose to smell, pe l'daber, a mouth to talk, yadayim la'asot lahem lacha, hands to do work with, raglayim la'halech b'hem. Now all of that is equal to male, female, legs to walk with. And then she says, dadim lahanik b'hem, breasts to nurse with. Dadim halalu shenatata alibi, lama lo lahanik b'hem. And here you feel really, this to me is like the crux of it. She says, I have breasts. Why aren't you letting me? They're right here on my heart, God. When it says al liba, she's like pointing to her heart and saying, these, God. So again, it's a little shocking, right? That the Talmud is willing to entertain, this is what she says to God. But she says, why don't you let me nurse with my breast? Give me a son, ten li ben, and I will nurse, right? And so again, it's the third time we've had her directly confronting God. Actually, before we had Adonai Tzvaot, we had the Sotah, we had the three mitzvot that she says, at least test me, God. Let me be in childbirth, and then you can see whether I'm worthy of living or dying. Like, what is this? And number 4, where she says to God, you gave me breasts. Really? You could, like, what am I supposed to do with that? That's why that's why I was invented. That's why I was created in the female body. That's the difference between male and female, is that I have breasts to nurse with. And the last thing they say, which I love here, I'm at the very bottom, V'titpalel al Adonai, second to last. And this tells us a little bit about Rabbi Elazar. Va'amar Rabbi Elazar, I'm at the 2 dots, 3 lines up, sorry. Va'amar Rabbi Elazar, Chana hiticha dvarim klape mala. Rabbi Elazar really gives her, in my opinion, the strongest voice. She hurled the words upward, right? She hurled her words in a violent, like a thunderbolt, but in reverse, upwards to the heaven. Shene'amar v'titpalel al Adonai, at God. She prayed not to God. Again, this is the pasuk, al Adonai, not le Hashem. And so Rabbi Elazar says, that's not your standard text. It should be, she prayed to God. That's not what it says. It's al Adonai, at God, as if she throws her prayer upward. And then Amar Rabbi Elazar, Eliyahu itiach dvarim klape mala. He compares her to Eliyahu. Elijah also hurls his words upward, is not afraid to be verbally violent in his demands of God. And so essentially what you've done is compare Hannah with her prayer to Eliyahu, both of whom, of course, changed the trajectory of the history of the nation, right? Shmuel becomes central in the anointment of Shaul and David. He introduces the monarchy. Eliyahu, in his own way, his story, he brings down the house of Ahab. His prophecies lead to the destruction of the house of Ahab. Okay, so that's really the end of this. I think it's an unusual collection. It's I think very interesting. Some of the drashot are really, I think, quite powerful and beautiful. There's both very masculine voices, but every so often something quite feminine that comes in. And so this is like being inside the Beit Midrash and listening to them analyze, interpret, discourse on the Drasha of Hannah. And as I said, positive from beginning to end. I mean, there's nothing critical of Hannah, like Hannah, which they're critical of Devorah. They're critical of other women in Tanakh. They're not critical of Hannah. I think ultimately because they feel she represents, the party line, right? She's not threatening to them. She only reinforces what it is they're trying to do. Okay, questions before we just wrap it up.
There was a question before from Zoe talking about the not being allowed to get drunk. So she says, is that tying back to the prohibition on the priest being drunk they stated in
Yes. That would actually be the source for the halacha, not Hannah. So again, it reinforces this idea. We don't really learn halacha from Hannah, but the highest praise we can give a woman is to treat her like a Tana. To say, oh, you're like one of us. Like you teach halacha just like we teach halacha. So yeah, the priests are the more accurate. They're not allowed to be drunk when they stand in service before God, and we've replaced the service in the temple with the prayer service, which brings us back to the very beginning, right? So if we take a look, can you see the page now? Is this, or do I need to do new share? I'll do new share, just here. Okay. So I did very quickly a little bit of a review of what we've seen from the beginning of the year. We started off at the beginning of the session. The first Mishnah and Brachot, the world that was versus the world that is, this idea of using, the sacrifices in the temple, the time frame around sacrifices in the temple to frame prayer. Do we continue to remember the temple? Don't we? Is it a new world? Is it a continuation of the world? And we saw different Tanaim had different attitudes as to how much we should be continuously looking back while looking forward. We talked about the meaning of Shema, right? That we open up with Shema, all 63 tractates of Mishnah. We start off with why do we say Shema? When do we say Shema at night? We talked about when does night begin, the priests and their tithes, and Rabbi Gamliel and his sons. Rabbi Gamliel coming in, his sons coming in almost towards dawn and, discussing whether they can still say Shema. We saw several brightot on the first Mishnah. How many different beginnings of night are there? We talked about, different opinions, different attitudes, approaches to defining time, the poor man and his bread, the beginning of Shabbat. We then looked at Rabbi Yossi and the ruins, that he's searching for the bat kol, for the voice in the ruins, and discovers, thanks to Elijah, here we started with Elijah, we're ending with Elijah, that God is responding to learning Torah and to prayer in a more positive way than the bat kol, the keening voice of God that wails and moans in the ruins. And so an important lesson about how, moving forward and building and revival. We took a little look at Shema in the morning, how you tell when morning has come, being able to tell your tzitzit. We then went to the second chapter, taking a break to meet and greet during Shema. At what point can you stop out of honor versus out of fear? What happens if you're in a tree or if you're laying brick? Saying Shema, Birkat Hamazon, davening, right? What happens if you're at work? What do you take a break for? What can you continue your work and you can still do? We saw 3 stories with Rabbi Gamliel. He defied convention. He said Shema on his wedding night, even though a bridegroom is exempt. He showers after his wife dies, even though you're not really supposed to shower during Avilut. He sat Shiva for his Canaanite slave Tabi, even though you're not supposed to do that. He accepted condolences. Right? So we see that even though there is strict halachic definition in all three cases, Rabbi Gamliel shows us nonetheless there is room for fluidity. In chapter 3, we talked about burying the dead and saying Shema in the context, right? If you're going out and it's a whole day mission to take the body out to bury and so on in the burial caves, what about your obligations? What is an oning, right? Who's exempt from mitzvot? Do the dead really know? We saw some really interesting stories about that. And then we had a unit on women and positive time-bound mitzvot. What are women exempted from? Why? We didn't really see any whys, but we talked a little bit about the Bavlis, the fact, women are exempted from like 8 or 9 mitzvot, but are obligated in quite a few. So we saw the power of a principle that has more exceptions to the rule than the rule itself, and it creates a binary divide between men and women. In chapter 4, we looked at the origins of prayer. What happens is it karbanot or avot, right? Avot tiknum or karbanot tiknum. We decided that really both end up influencing the meaning behind the structure for prayer. There's no way to privilege one over the other. What happens if you miss a prayer? We talked about tashlumin. And then finally, we got to Chana's prayer, which is what we did today. So I think not too bad for 8 sessions. We covered a lot of material.
Can I just remind everyone, this is in the handout I sent this morning, so you should have a copy of this.
Yeah. It's at the back. Anyway, any questions, I'm happy to answer. It's been a real pleasure. And Rachel and I talked about maybe continuing in November after the Chagim, seeing if we can continue. I don't know if you wanted to mention that. It's okay.
Yeah, I was going to summarize it a bit, but maybe take questions if there's any questions before, and then we can sort of wrap it up. Yeah. Okay, no questions. So on behalf of myself and Lindsay and Miriam, and I'm sure everyone else in the group, I really thank you so much for this opportunity and for directing us and guiding us. And it's been fascinating and interesting and amazing. I mean, today especially for me was really interesting because I feel like nothing's changed in terms of not just in jury, like it's something I can really relate to. It's quite amazing. So thank you so much. We are thinking, this is for everybody, we are thinking of potentially looking at possibilities of carrying on post the Chagim. We're looking about October, November time, and obviously depends on logistics. But what Miriam and Lindsay have done is created a feedback form, which would be really amazing if everyone will send it to you. If you could just send it back to us so we can see where to take it further, where we're going to go from here. And I'm, if you can, it will be really helpful to us so we can take this forward. But again, thank you so much, Nechama, for everything. It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Bye. Have a great day. And if I get stuck, I'll let you guys know. I'll let someone know.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much, Nechama.
Okay.
I'm trying to say thank you, but my dog is barking.
Okay. You're welcome. Bye.